are you thinking Diddy's going to, be found guilty, not guilty, has a chance, no chance? Like, what's your opinion on this, MC?
Well, if we go by the court of public opinion, he's already cooked. And
Yeah.
it's crazy because people have been going in on him for years and warning people about some of these things that he was doing. But I guess now that we actually saw the footage on camera and starting to hear these testimonies, I guess that's the gut check that everybody needed. Like, oh, we got a problem here.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, he's still connected to money. And apparently he has a list of 120 people of notable people, by the way, that were involved in some of these parties. I've heard a couple of Trumps that were attended this party. And I'm not just talking about hip hop people.
Wait,
I'm
what
talking
did you
about.
say? You heard who was there?
So I heard a couple of not Donald Trump, but his
Oh,
daughter. Her name came up.
oh man.
There's been news reporters who've been mentioned, but I
Yeah,
think
LeBron went to those parties too, so make sure you make sure you keep
well
it fair
they
and
got
balanced.
him on tape saying ain't no party like a Diddy party because the Diddy party don't stop.
Hey, for real.
But Cassie said that the little free calls that they used to have would last anywhere from 48 to 72 hours, and on occasion it can stretch up to 5 days. 5 days
Yeah.
of
So I got a
baby oil.
I got a video that's going to kind of dive into this. But one of the things that's pretty quiet about this case, so I don't think a lot of people understand how this case even came to be, other than Cassie bringing suit. Which was kind of weird though, because Cassie was trying to get money and she didn't get any money, so she went to she filed a lawsuit, and that's when Diddy, and once we got the story details, that's when Diddy came up with the money to give to Cassie, thinking that Cassie was going to go away. But now, lo and behold, she's the star witness. But anyways, so this case came about though because in New York they created that New York Survivors Act in New York to go after Donald Trump, which is crazy though because Diddy was against Trump, and then they used the same, or I believe he wasn't a fan of Trump, whatever the case is, but they use that same law, that same the Survivors Act to go after Diddy. And so, and there's been some other people that are going after him, but Cassie is the more well known one. So anyway, so that's how we got there. And so there's been like a lot of conversations about how this trial is going to go. Is it going to be a fair trial? I don't think Diddy's going to get a fair trial, and it's mainly because of the jury selection. I heard that that they removed the majority of black jurors off of the trial, and in most cases, I'm all about being fair. Like everybody's should understand. Like when it comes to the jury, you want the people to be there to be fair and balanced. But what I'm finding out about the law is that it's anything but that, because the people that they kept on there, they said half of the jury pool is over the age of 50. So some of these folks are not going to be understanding, like, wait, why would he want some guy to do XYZ? Why is he doing all this crazy stuff with this woman? This woman is pregnant. Cassie is currently pregnant. And there's just a lot of things that a lot of gamesmanship that you have to do as an attorney, because you're trying to figure out the best jury pool, the best jury options for yourself. And so I don't think that looks good for Diddy though, because these are, and half of them are white, or actually I think they're half white and then also half women. So that I just don't think those are good options for him though, and mainly because I think women are a little more, or tend to be more sympathetic to a woman that's appears to be in a victim. So there's some debate there. But also when it comes to like, figuring out like, is this the jury of your peers? And one would say like that's the jury of your peers though, but I know you should always want to strive for like a mixed jury pool and not just all white jury pool. That's what happened to Jonathan Majors. And I'm not saying that they got the Jonathan Majors. Well, I will say they got the Jonathan Majors situation wrong, but there was only one black person on the Jonathan Majors jury trial. And so in this situation, I don't know if there are any black people on there. I just know that the way that they describe them, it appears that they're majority white people on this jury, on the jury selection. And so that may be, that that tends to be a negative thing. That's per from like attorneys when they're trying to figure out who they want to have on the jury. They typically go for people that look like them in order to get a favorable outcome. Doesn't always happen, but that's just what they do. Go ahead, MC.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me pause here, so we know that the prosecuting attorneys and the defense attorneys pick half and half of the jury. So half of that jury that was picked came from his defense team. So I don't know what the strategy was. Let's say that we know for a fact that everybody on the jury is white and older than 50. I can understand that from a defense standpoint because you probably want somebody who more than likely doesn't know who you are and is probably not familiar with all the beefs that you were involved in and all the
Yeah,
other allegeds in the hip
that's
hop
true too.
space. So in that regard, it makes sense. From the prosecuting perspective, I would think you'd want to do the opposite of that. You want like millennials, people of color, particularly women who are typically going to attach themselves to Cassie's tears and testimony and kind of lean in her direction. So I don't know what the prosecution side was thinking, but from a defense side, I understand.
Yeah,
Um, Here's the thing. One of the questions that was asked, and I'm gonna throw this out to you, TR, see what you think about it. What was going viral today in these social media streets is was Cassie a victim? Or was she involved in all of this? Because she's not completely innocent. But what do you think? Where do you stand on this? Because a lot of people can't are struggling to answer that question. Is she a
yeah.
victim or is she a participant?
I think both things are true though, because Cassie was setting up some of these sessions. Cassie was she said there was an abuse claim that happened, but then she's going back to him the next day and multiple days, and she spent almost 10 years with Diddy. So it's hard for me to understand to believe that she is a complete or she's innocent in all of this. What I think happened is I think the state's using Cassie just to make an example out of Diddy because this is one of those cases that will set your career. Like you put Diddy behind bars, you got a conviction on Diddy. This sets your career. This has nothing. This really has nothing to do with like Cassie or that CNN video that dropped showing, how he abused her down the hallway. There's a lot of things that are going on, but justice is not going on. I think this is more to do with just, these the prosecutors and also the prosecutors, they're all women. They're all white women at that. And so I bring that up though because it's like you guys are prosecuting Diddy and you didn't have any diversity in here because there might be some blind spots that I feel like there's going to be more black people that are aware of some of the shenanigans with Diddy that has occurred versus some of the other one, and they're all prosecutors, so they've done all their homework. But what I've seen happen is that in New York they tend to be more about doing whatever it takes to get the conviction versus doing what's in the best interest of justice. And so one example is the Jonathan Majors. The other example are how they went after Trump. We have there were like was it two prosecutors? Yeah, it was Alvin Bragg and Letitia James bending the law to go after Donald Trump. So that just tells me that any prosecutor that's in New York is just doing things just to put a feather in the hat to get the accolades because I one it's crazy. One of the prosecutors is the daughter of James Comey, who was the former FBI director that was fired by Trump. So this stuff comes full circle around though, man. But I just think that Cassie is definitely she was also participating, but she's also a victim. But the way that the defense, or not the defense, but what the prosecutors are trying to do is they're trying to just paint her as this saint victim, and use that to railroad Diddy. But like I said, unless they botch it, I think Diddy's cooked. Honestly,
Yeah, he's going down, a la Jeffrey Epstein. But This lawsuit is way bigger than people realize. If you all the celebrities that have been mentioned so far in testimony, page six kind of wrote them out. I actually just posted the article. This ain't just black celebrities, by the way, and this ain't just like lower level celebrities. These are like real big names, real impactful names. But I'm going to go back. The first question I asked you, I said, "Is Cassie a victim or is she a participant?" The reason why it's hard to answer questions like that is because women do a really good job of resetting what the standard is depending on what the topic is, right?
That's
And
true.
here's what I mean by that. So there's different accounts of how old Cassie was when she first met Diddy and started messing with Diddy. We know that people like Jaguar Wright and others have gone on the record and said that Cassie was allegedly an active participant in his abuse of his first wife, Kim
Yeah.
Porter. This is alleged, so don't come for me. Come for other people that talked about this. To the point where she would allegedly see Diddy abusing her and would sit and laugh about it, or sometimes participate. So my question is, at what age do you know morality, right? Because she waited forever to file this suit. And that always baffles me. I'm sorry, women, but it baffles me. I don't get why you would wait instead of just making it a problem right away. She
Every
waited
excuse.
forever to file the suit. She was actually she bought some of these other women around, so she was serving as a madam slash mistress and providing assists like Jason Kidd or John Stockton.
Mm-hmm.
And now that she's shedding tears and appearing distressed, here we are tapping into our feminine power again, because if a woman starts crying or she shows signs of distress, she's going to inspire sympathy and empathy from the public. And that's what's happening now. I do tend to agree with you, though. Two things can be true. She can be a victim and a participant, though I'm still kind of wondering about that. I'm still wondering about both and how they apply to her. Also, I'm glad you brought up politics because I was going to say I believe that this is going to become political at some point because the Dems took a huge hit when people, at least in the black podcasting circles, were calling the Dems the party of Diddy. A lot of those people were at these Diddy parties.
Mm-hmm.
Politicians were mentioned, by the way. So I think at some point this is going to become political because the Dems need to distance themselves from this. If that is the case, and quite frankly, they need some type of victory because they've been hurting ever since Trump smacked them around last November.
Facts. All right. Let me get this video queued up and we can start, taking some or critiquing it.
The prosecution's star.
Oops. Hold on here. Unmute.
Witness taking the stand, but it was more than that. It was how Cassie took that stand. You could hear a pin drop when those doors opened, and a visibly pregnant Cassie Ventura walking past.
Also, real quick, whenever people talk about Cassie, these news media outlets and even some of the creators on social media, they consistently paint her as a victim. You actually have to go in the comments where people ask the question about how's she a victim when she was, bringing in some of these escorts or asking these escorts to do certain things to her per the escort's testimony. So it's interesting that they're taking this position on this, but I mean, I'm not surprised at CNN.
Past a man she had seen in 6.5 years, a man she says violently abused her for a decade, a man the prosecution said trafficked her. Well, she sat across from him, placed her overcoat behind her, turning her body slightly toward the jury, rubbing her pregnant belly throughout her testimony. Diddy, well, he was more fidgety than he was the day before. He was passing notes. He pushed himself away from the defense table and largely sat like that. They never seemed to make eye contact with one another, not even after she was crying about having loved him once and planning and participating in these freak-off sex parties because she feared him and she wanted to make him happy, but feeling worthless, feeling disgusting because she didn't want to do it. Now, with each moment, the testimony became more and more graphic. Her delivery, though.
See, I have such a trouble with this because they're creating a narrative that really isn't there. One more thing I wanted to bring up though, when it comes to like these trafficking charges, if this sticks, if Diddy gets put on trafficking in Rico, it's a wrap for a lot of men. Those flyouts, those ain't gonna happen anymore. Fly you in,
Yeah, because you're right.
None of that stuff
you can fly somebody out and be grouped into trafficking. You're absolutely right. That's crazy.
Yep, and on the RICO charge, it's pretty easy to throw RICO charges on people. Apparently, when it comes to like what happened in Atlanta with, Fulton County with Fannie Willis with the RICO charges on the Trump organization, they just make up the charges. They just throw the RICO charges. Honestly, what men should be here. Let me put this back on the screen. What men need to be looking at is how they're being portrayed in the media. And I'm not saying Diddy is just like everybody else though, but it's how they're using the law to go after Diddy, because whatever they do for the law, what do you think they're gonna do to you? Like you're not gonna be able to have your say in court. You probably won't have the money. You're gonna be able to get one lawyer and maybe the jailhouse lawyer or something, but you're not gonna be able to even have remotely close to a case like what Diddy's going through or defense that Diddy's going through. Most men, honestly, would have taken the plea deal. Even if they didn't do it, they probably would have taken the plea deal, because I don't know how they get out of this situation. I don't know how they try to show their innocence, because everyone thinks Diddy did all this stuff and no one's really going after Cassie. No one, I mean, we're bringing it up and there's a few people in the comments, but I don't see a lot of creators, outside of like CGA has brought it up, Anton Daniels has brought it up. I'm pretty sure Angry Man has brought it up as well too. But when it comes to like, how they're paying Cassie and CNN's doing it, they're making it seem like they're setting the story, they're setting the tone that she's just a victim. And, they're going very into detail on how she looks. This is crazy.
She really doesn't have to do much here, because Diddy kind of stuck his foot in his mouth when he did that apology video. He didn't specifically admit the things he did to Cassie. He said that I did some horrible things and I've been getting some help, and I just want to apologize to everybody that I've affected.
Yeah,
but again, he snitched on himself. I'm surprised he didn't try to jump on a plane and fly to another country like another famous black celebrity that recently got caught up in the scandal. But for now. Yeah, allegedly. But anyway, man, he is cooked. He's definitely cooked. The only thing his defense can do is try to get a reduced or lesser sentence.
No, that's out the door now.
He's going to take some type of punishment.
Yeah,
I do think that one thing that could backfire on Cassie is the fact that she accepted a $20 million settlement in 2023, though. I think they could probably use that as some type of evidence to argue for a reduced challenge, because you could argue that they sat down and they talked it out. She took the settlement and she acknowledged that it was squashed, but then it came back up again.
Yeah.
So you could kind of use that to discount her testimony a little bit. It won't excuse him from the criminal charges themselves, but I'm wondering what the counter strategy is here, because I've always fascinated by how attorneys typically would defend anyone, particularly in a situation like this where everything is just against Diddy right now. I don't know what the defense is going to be. I'm curious to see how that goes.
Yeah.
Never changed. It was, matter of fact, steady, calm. At times, she was even critical of herself, walking us all through how at 10 a.m. she testified, quote, every freak off was like directed by Sean, like he knew specifically where he wanted everyone to be, the lighting and such. Cassie says the freak offs made her feel disgusting, humiliated. She says she took all kinds of drugs to numb herself and disassociate. And she testified Diddy frequently got physically abusive. One of those times was during a 2016 incident at a California hotel.
I know we can show that.
They asked if there were occasions when she tried to fight back when he would hit her. She said, no. Cassie's testimony, it's far from over. She'll be back on that stand tomorrow. And her lawyer, though, says she's feeling good after today.
How do you feel after today?
It's not for me to decide how we feel. It's up to the jury. But we're very confident.
Cassie got her own lawyer? Did you know that? Why would she need her own lawyer?
I hope so.
Wait, why would she need her own lawyer? Am I missing something here?
I mean, you're entitled to defend. She wasn't going to defend herself.
She's not on trial.
Yeah,
though.
she's not on trial, but I think there's probably some personal vested interest in it for her to see him pay for his crimes.
Yeah,
that's the only conclusion I can draw.
Okay, that's very weird. I didn't connect the dots that she had her own lawyer there. Like, why would she need her own lawyer? She's not on. They're not going to go after Cassie. If Cassie could implicate herself, she can. I mean, well, she is, but she can say all these things that happen. The state is not going to go after Cassie. They've already made. They're going to make an example out of Diddy, and Diddy's the guy. They're not going to go after a pregnant woman. They're not going to go after a pregnant Black woman. Like, there's a lot of woke infinity stones that they're not going to be able to touch. So even if she does implicate herself and says she did all these things, she might as well, have, the immunity deal? Like, she might as well just have that, though. And which is weird, though, because I don't know why she's even talking, because I could have sworn she signed an NDA on that settlement, but apparently that's thrown out the window, which, something for the legal bros to figure it out, I guess.
I think we've learned by now that, Stormy Daniels had an NDA too, and she told it all. So I don't really know how legally binding these NDAs are. I really don't.
Yeah, and she actually, Trump successfully won the NDA disclosure, or breaking the NDA. So I forgot how much money is. I think it was like 6 figures. But I mean, nobody talks about Stormy Daniels no more. All those Democrats that wanted to use Stormy Daniels and Alvin Bragg use Stormy Daniels to go after him. They don't even talk about her anymore. She's just, a footnote in history now. Oops. Let me go back.
And here's the thing: they could probably go very deep in the chamber to get people to testify against Diddy. Just in these couple minutes we've been talking, I've been doing some searches on, I've been looking for positive and negative stories with this dude. I can't find anything positive. What I did find was he got into a fight with Drake. He got into a fight with J. Cole. He tried to fight the weight training coach at UCLA in California. I can't find anything positive about this dude. And then Gene Deal, his former bodyguard, him and Biggie's former bodyguard, has also gone on the record of saying, I've seen this dude slap his own mom in front of everybody.
Yeah.
For trying to say something about the way he does business. So, Diddy, this might be a little bit of karma, man. You can't find not one person to say anything positive about you. One?
Hey, that Dave Chappelle skit looks a little bit different now.
Yeah, it looks way different.
How's she doing after it all? How is she feeling? I know it must have been a lot to kind of recount all the experiences.
It was a long day. I'm just super proud of her.
Let's start off with CNN's Kara Scannell, who has been covering this case from the very beginning, and she was in the courtroom today, virtually a front row seat. Kara, tell me, how did the testimony come in? How were these freak-offs orchestrated?
So Cassie kind of walked the jury, helping them travel to certain locations, from Miami to Ibiza to New York to LA. Responsible for was finding these escorts, using Craigslist, some of these other escort services, helping them travel to certain locations, from Miami to Ibiza to New York to LA to Las Vegas. And that she worked with Combs's business travel people in order to move people around, saying that they would project that they were potential employers.
She's admitting to trafficking. That is unless trafficking is something different, unless it's understood differently, that's trafficking the way they've been applying the law. This is
crazy.
crazy.
You just answered your own question too, TR. Maybe we know now why she has a lawyer. She wants some immunity for this stuff.
Well, I feel like they would have given her an immunity deal beforehand, though. But
I'm sure she agreed to some type of deal before she took the stand. Because I'm sure they were begging her to take the stand. She about to walk away scot-free.
But she said that he had everything to do with what she was wearing. She said she would buy outfits from sex shops and see which one he wanted her to wear. And then inside the actual hotel rooms, their apartments where the freak-offs took place, she said that Combs was in charge of lighting. It began.
lighting.
The range of these fears were from physical to just if she upset him, he would take away her phone, her car, limit her access to her apartment. Sometimes that was done by him, sometimes through members of his staff, some of his security team. She also was testifying that, these physical threats. One thing that stood out to me that she said was if she made the wrong face, the next thing I knew I was getting hit in the face. And she said he controlled almost every aspect of her life. He gave her essentially busy work, a to-do list, so he would know what she was doing at all times. If he couldn't reach her, he was incessantly texting her until someone went and checked to see where she was. She also said that he controlled her appearance. Sometimes he didn't like her hair. He wanted her to dress sexy, sometimes a tomboy. He wanted her nails to be white, she testified, especially during the freak-offs. And one thing that she said she was concerned about was blackmail, because a lot of these freak-offs were recorded, and the big concern was hers that they could end up in the internet if somehow she did something to upset him.
We're just a
So that's enough of that video. All they're gonna do is just
I have a question, TR. Where's the masculinity in this? Because another thing, and that word I hate, toxic masculinity, has been floating through the socials all day today. So for all you people that like to use that stupid concept, tell me how is any of this masculine? You tell me what type of dude that's living in his purpose and taking care of business has enough time to sit and micromanage somebody like this and abuse the power that they have.
I will say there's definitely a lot of work. I feel like he could have been best served doing other stuff though. But I mean, Diddy wasn't he a billionaire, I believe, or close to it?
Oh yeah, he's a billionaire for sure.
So yeah, he's definitely had the ability to do other things, but micromanage a person down to like clothing and everything, that's just crazy to me. Maybe she's exaggerating, maybe she's exaggerating some of these things, I don't know. We haven't heard from Diddy's defense, or it's still the prosecutors going through this, so there'll probably be some more additional conversations there. But I'm really waiting to hear from the defense and see how she's going to get herself out of that, which is, to your point, is why she has a lawyer to step in or tell her when hey, don't say anything, or keep this to yourself, or whatever the case is. So that kind of makes sense though. But I mean, again, when it comes to incriminating herself, the state's not going to go after her. She may look bad in the public sphere, but I don't know, it could be worse than Diddy, but it's just a very odd situation on this one though. But yeah, there's a lot of things going on with this though, so we're going to try to stay up to date on this before we move to the next topic, which is still Diddy related. Anything else on this one, MC?
No, I'm just looking forward to hearing his defense, because he had a lot that he had to talk his way out of. It's going to be interesting to hear how that goes.
Yeah, so all right.